Well, it's hard to believe, really, because when you start off, you don't actually think of going on like this. Particularly when I started, rock and roll was in its infancy, and everybody said we were one-hit wonders, and most of us believed that.
For decades, the world believed they knew Cliff Richard, the smiling star, the chart-topping singer, the man who seemed to live in the spotlight without a shadow.
I was really lucky, because I kind of started at the top. I mean, things do to change. I don't think it's just in the music industry, it's changed. We had people that nurtured our careers. They helped you to look at the potential of longevity.
But what if there was another side to his story? Behind the sold-out concerts, flashing cameras, and carefully crafted image, a different life quietly unfolded. A life hidden from fans, the media, and even those closest to him. For 30 years, this secret remained buried until now. Join us in this video as we unveil the untold story of fame, privacy, and the truth that stayed hidden for decades. The day the silence was broken. On the morning of August 14, 2014, officers from South Yorkshire Police arrived at the Berkshire home of Cliff Richard. There had been no warning, no quiet request for a meeting, no private conversation beforehand. What made it even more shocking was not just the search itself, but how it unfolded. A helicopter hovered overhead. Cameras captured every movement. The footage was broadcast live by the BBC. Across Britain, viewers watched police cars outside the villa of a national treasure without knowing what he was accused of. Cliff was not even at home. He was away on holiday when the images began to spread. The scene felt dramatic, almost cinematic. Yet there was no arrest. No charges were announced. No clear explanation was given to the public that day. Still, something important had changed. The protective curtain that had shielded Cliff's private life for more than 50 years was suddenly torn down. For the first time in his long career, he was no longer in control of how the world saw him. When Cliff returned to Britain, he walked straight into a storm. Reporters waited. Headlines multiplied. Speculation filled television panels and newspaper columns. For decades, Cliff had lived by one simple rule: say little, reveal less. Silence had always protected him, but this time, his silence was treated as doubt. The quiet that once preserved his mystery now seemed suspicious to some. Weeks later, he made a public statement. He said he had not been told about the investigation in advance. He had not been questioned before the search. He had learned about it the same way millions of others had, by seeing it on daytime television. The shock was not only about the investigation, it was about the exposure. Over the next 2 years, investigators reviewed past allegations connected to him. The process moved slowly and under intense public attention. In June 2016, the authorities announced there was no basis to bring any charges against Cliff Richard. Legally, the case was closed. No crime had been proven. No prosecution would follow. But reputation does not follow legal rules. Even without charges, doubt lingers. Images remain. For Cliff, the damage was not measured in court papers. It was measured in whispers, in online comments, in the quiet change of tone when his name was mentioned. This time, he did not stay silent. Cliff filed a lawsuit against the BBC for broadcasting the search. The trial was long and very public. Once again, cameras and headlines followed him. But now he was fighting back. In 2018, the court ruled in his favor. The broadcaster was ordered to pay significant damages for violating his privacy. After the verdict, Cliff spoke with calm but clear emotion. He said his reputation had been seriously damaged by claims that were never proven. It was not a dramatic speech. It was steady and controlled, much like the man himself. Yet behind those words was a deeper message. Fame does not erase the right to privacy. Even public figures deserve basic respect. The case sparked debate across Britain. Politicians, journalists, and artists questioned whether people under investigation should be named before charges are made. The discussion reached beyond Cliff himself. It became about the balance between public interest and personal dignity. Cliff did not lead those debates. As always, he stepped back. He withdrew from the noise. But this time, the withdrawal looked different. It carried visible scars. In the years that followed, he continued to work. He released new music. He appeared at selected events. Interviews were carefully arranged, with clear limits. More recently, he spoke openly about his treatment for prostate cancer and supported men's health campaigns, especially for those over 60. When asked about 2014, he often repeats one quiet sentence: "I keep living," but from that point on, nothing was the same. Today, Cliff still performs. In 2025, he launched the Can't Stop Me Now tour across major venues. His name still shines on marquees. Audiences still sing along. Yet behind the stage lights, one truth remains. The world may know his songs, his smile, his career, but the man himself, the part he guarded for 30 years, remains mostly unseen. But who exactly was Cliff Richard before his private life became a debate in the media? Keep watching to find out. Before the name, before the fame. Long before the world knew him as Cliff Richard, he was simply Harry Roger Webb. He was born on 14th October 1940 at King George's Hospital on Victoria Street in Lucknow, at a time when India was still under British rule. The city was busy, colorful, and full of history. It was a world far removed from the stages and bright lights he would one day stand under. Harry's father, Roger Oscar Webb, worked as a manager for a catering contractor serving the Indian Railways. It was steady work and provided the family with a comfortable life. His mother, Dorothy Marie Daisley, cared for the home and children. For a time, the family also lived in Howrah, near Calcutta, where they stayed in company-provided housing. Compared to what came later, those early years in India were relatively stable. Harry came from mainly English roots, though his family history carried small traces of other cultures. One great-grandmother was half Welsh and half Spanish, descended from a Spanish ancestor named Emmeline Joseph Ribeiro. It was a quiet detail in his background, but it added another thread to his story, a mix of places and identities long before he ever chose a stage name. The Webbs lived in a modest home in Maqbara, near the main shopping area of Hazrat Ganj in Lucknow. Life felt settled. Harry's grandmother worked as a dormitory matron at the well-known La Martiniere Girls' School. Family connections were strong, and the children grew up surrounded by relatives. Harry had 3 sisters, Joan, Jackie, and Donna. They shared rooms, laughter, and the small routines of daily life. But history was moving quickly around them. In 1947, India gained independence. The brutality surrounding Direct Action Day and the uncertainty that followed deeply affected many British families living there. The Webbs made a life-changing decision. In 1948, they left India for good. The journey to Britain took 3 weeks by sea aboard the SS Ranchi. For young Harry, it must have felt like stepping into the unknown. When the family arrived in Tilbury, Essex, the change was dramatic. In India, they had enjoyed a certain level of comfort. In England, they started again with much less. They first settled in Carshalton, North Surrey, in a semi-detached house. Harry attended Stanley Park Juniors, a local primary school. The move meant adjusting to a new country, new weather, and a different way of life. The warmth and color of India were replaced by gray skies and post-war Britain, still recovering and rebuilding. In 1949, his father found work in the credit control office of Thorne Electrical Industries in Enfield. The family moved again, this time to Waltham Cross in Hertfordshire, where they shared a home with relatives. Harry attended Kings Road Junior Mixed Infants School. Space was tight, and money was limited. Eventually, in 1950, they were given a 3-bedroom council house in nearby Cheshunt at 12 Hargreaves Close. It was not grand, but it was theirs. Harry went to Cheshunt Secondary Modern School from 1952 to to 1957. He was placed in the top stream and stayed beyond the minimum school leaving age to take his GCE ordinary level exams. He passed English literature, a subject that perhaps hinted at the storytelling and emotion he would later bring to his music. After finishing school, he took a job as a filing clerk for Atlas Lamps. It was ordinary office work, quiet and structured. No one looking at the teenage clerk would have predicted international fame. Music entered his life almost by accident. During the 1950s, skiffle music was sweeping through Britain. It was simple, energetic, and easy to play. Harry became fascinated by it. When he was 16, his father bought him a guitar. That single gift would change everything. In 1957, he formed a vocal harmony group at school called the Quintones. It was modest and local, but it gave him his first taste of performing. Soon after, he joined the Dick Teague skiffle group as a singer. The shy boy from Cheshire began to discover a new confidence when he held a microphone. At that point, he was still Harry Webb, a young man finding his voice, playing in small halls and youth clubs. The name Cliff Richard did not yet exist, but the foundation was already being built. Movement between countries, a sense of starting over, a careful guarding of private life, and a growing love for music. Long before the fame and the secrecy, there was simply a boy with a guitar, trying to be heard. So how did Harry Webb become Cliff Richard? Let's find out. Becoming Cliff, the birth of a rock and roll star. By the late 1950s, Harry Webb was no longer just a teenager with a guitar. He had become the lead singer of a local rock and roll group called the Drifters, not connected to the famous American group of the same name, but full of the same raw energy that was sweeping through Britain at the time. Rock and roll was new, loud, and slightly rebellious. It felt different from anything that had come before, and Harry fit right into it. An entrepreneur named Harry Greatorex believed the young singer needed a stronger, sharper name. Harry Webb sounded ordinary. It did not carry the power of rock music. The name Cliff was chosen because it sounded like cliff face, suggesting rock. It felt solid, bold, and memorable. The surname Richard was suggested by Ian Samwell, a member of the band, as a tribute to Harry's musical hero, Little Richard. And just like that, Harry Webb began to disappear. Cliff Richard was born. Before their first major appearance at the Regal Ballroom in Ripley, Derbyshire in 1958, the group officially became Cliff Richard and the Drifters. The lineup included Cliff on vocals, Ian Samwell on guitar, Terry Smart on drums, and Norman Mitham on guitar. They were young, ambitious, and still learning. But they had hunger, and that mattered. Their big break came when agent George Ganju saw them perform in London. He recommended them to producer Norrie Paramore at EMI. That audition would change everything. For Cliff's first recording session, Paramore selected a song called Schoolboy Crush, originally recorded by American singer Bobby Helms. Cliff was also allowed to record one original track for the B-side. That song was Move It, written by Ian Samwell while riding a number 715 Green Line bus on his way to rehearsal at Cliff's home. During the session for Move It, Paramore brought in experienced musicians, including guitarist Ernie Shears and bassist Frank Clark. At first, Schoolboy Crush was meant to be the main track, but something unexpected happened. Some say Paramore's young daughter loved Move It and kept talking about it. Others say influential television producer Jack Good insisted that only Move It be performed on his show. Oh boy. Whatever the reason, the sides were switched. Cliff later admitted how nervous he felt about his first television appearance. He even shaved off his sideburns after Jack Good suggested it would make him look more original. When Move It was released in 1958, it reached number 2 on the UK singles chart. John Lennon would later describe it as the first true British rock record. That was no small praise. In those early days, Cliff was marketed as Britain's answer to Elvis Presley. Like earlier British rockers such as Tommy Steele and Marty Wilde, he adopted the slick hair and sharp suits associated with Elvis. On stage, he rarely smiled. He posed with attitude, staring past the audience as if already a star. Follow-up singles like High Class Baby, Livin' Lovin' Doll, and Mean Streak continued the energetic rock style. But it was Living Doll, written by Lionel Bart, that marked a turning point. The song softened his image. It became his first #1 single in the UK and showed that he could move beyond pure rock into mainstream pop. Around this time, the group's lineup changed. Jet Harris, Tony Meehan, Hank Marvin, and Bruce Welch joined. Legal complications with the American Drifters forced a name change, and the band became The Shadows. Unlike most backing bands, The Shadows developed their own identity. They even signed a separate recording contract and scored major hits themselves, including 5 UK #1 singles. Sometimes their instrumental tracks would replace Cliff at the top of the charts. Cliff's sound continued to evolve. Songs like Travelin' Light, I Love You, A Voice in the Wilderness, and Theme for a Dream established him as a leading pop star of the early 1960s. Alongside singers such as Adam Faith and Billy Fury, his music was still lively, but it carried more polish and emotional depth. In 1961, EMI celebrated its 21st birthday at its London headquarters in Manchester Square. The event was carefully photographed and later featured on his album, 21 Today. Even as band members came and went, Tony Meehan left and was replaced by Brian Bennett, and bass players changed over time. Cliff's career remained steady. He also began recording ballads backed by the Norrie Paramore Orchestra. Songs like When the Girl in Your Arms is the Girl in Your Heart, It's All in the Game, and Constantly showed a gentler side. In 1965, recording sessions in Nashville under producer Billy Sherrill produced The Minute You're Gone, which topped the UK chart, and Wind Me Up, Let Me Go, which reached #2. Despite success in Britain, Cliff and the Shadows struggled to break fully into the American market. They toured the United States in 1960 and even appeared on The Ed Sullivan Show, which had launched many careers. But distribution issues and weak label support limited their impact. Ironically, the Shadows' instrumental Apache became a US hit through a cover by Danish guitarist Jørgen Ingman. Meanwhile, Cliff's film career flourished. He and the Shadows appeared in 6 feature films, including Serious Charge, The Young Ones, Summer Holiday, Wonderful Life, and Finders Keepers. These movies created what became known as the Cliff Richard musical. In 1962 and 1963, he was named Britain's top cinema box office attraction, even ahead of the popular James Bond films. The title song of The Young Ones became his biggest-selling UK single, selling over 1 million copies. Decades later, the 1980s sitcom The Young Ones borrowed its name from the film. By mid-1963, Cliff and the Shadows were performing seasons in Blackpool, where artist Victor Hayfron even painted his portrait. From a schoolboy in Cheshunt to Britain's biggest pop star, the transformation was complete. The name Cliff Richard now stood for success, clean-cut charm, and unstoppable momentum. Yet even as the fame grew louder, something else quietly grew stronger: the careful control over his image, the habit of revealing only what was necessary, the instinct to guard the man behind the music. How did Cliff balance faith, fame, and staying in the spotlight? Stay tuned to find out. Faith, fame, and fighting to stay relevant. When the 1960s gathered speed, the music world shifted almost overnight. In 1963 and 1964, the Beatles and the Mersey sound took over, bringing a fresh, youthful energy that was impossible to ignore. Like many British artists, Cliff Richard felt the change. His career did not collapse, but it was no longer as dominant as it had been. He still scored hits, yet the feverish excitement of his early years had softened. In the United States, success proved harder to secure. Although 4 of his songs entered the Billboard Hot 100 between 1963 and 1964, including It's All in the Game, which reached the top 25, he was never truly embraced as part of the British invasion. At home, he remained a star, Across the Atlantic, he was respected but not revolutionary. Then, in 1964, his life took a deeper turn. Though baptized an Anglican, Cliff had not actively practiced his faith when younger. That year, he became a committed evangelical Christian. It was a public and personal transformation. At first, he felt torn. Once described as too sexy for TV, he questioned whether rock and roll still fit his beliefs. For a time, he even considered leaving music to become a teacher. Friends in the evangelical community urged him not to walk away. They believed he could use his fame positively. Cliff chose to stay. He began appearing at events linked to evangelist Billy Graham and recorded openly Christian material, while still releasing pop hits with the Shadows. Learning to balance both worlds was not easy, but it grounded him. Musically, milestones continued. His 1965 single, On My Word, reached number 12, ending a remarkable run of 23 consecutive UK top 10 hits. In 1967, The Day I Met Marie became another success. That same year, he starred in the film To a Penny, produced by Billy Graham's Worldwide Pictures, exploring themes of doubt and faith. In 1968, he represented the UK at the Eurovision Song Contest with Congratulations. He finished second by just 1 point to Spain's La La La. Though tense, he reportedly hid away during the final vote. The song became a major international hit. The 1970s brought new chapters. His TV series It's Cliff Richard ran from 1970 to 1976, featuring guests like Olivia Newton-John. Yet in 1975, controversy struck when he discovered Honky Tonk Angel carried an unintended meaning. Guided by his faith, he withdrew the single despite strong sales prospects. A revival came in 1976 with the album I'm Nearly Famous, produced by Bruce Welch. Devil Woman became his first major US hit, followed by Miss You Nights. Support from artists like Elton John signaled renewed respect. In 1979, We Don't Talk Anymore, written by Alan Tarney, topped the UK charts and reached number 7 in the US, becoming his biggest global seller. By 1980, he had officially changed his name by deed poll and received an OBE for services to music and charity. The hits continued through the 1980s, including Wired for Sound and Mistletoe and Wine, his 99th single, and A Christmas Number. 1. His 100th release, The Best of Me, confirmed his historic standing. He filled Wembley Stadium and remained a constant presence. In 1995, he was knighted, becoming Sir Cliff Richard, the first rock star to receive the honor. From teenage rebel to national treasure, he survived changing tastes and personal transformation. Through faith, reinvention, and resilience, he refused to fade. He adapted, endured, and built a career far beyond the era that first made him famous. What happens when success fades and the radio stops playing? Keep watching to find out. The sound of silence on the radio. For a man who built his life around music, being unheard is a different kind of struggle. In recent decades, Cliff Richard has spoken openly about what he sees as a lack of support from radio stations and parts of the music industry. It is not about ego, he has explained. It is about fairness. In December 2007, during an appearance on The Alan Titchmarsh Show, Cliff addressed the issue directly. He pointed out that airplay is not only important for new artists trying to break through. Established performers rely on it too. Without radio support, even a well-known name can fade from public view. He reminded viewers that during the 1980s, radio stations regularly played his records, which helped keep his music alive and visible. That support translated into sales and chart success. He also raised the issue in a BBC Radio 2 documentary titled Cliff, Take Another Look. In it, he noted how some programs about the history of British rock, including series such as I'm in a Rock and Roll Band, failed to mention him or the Shadows. For someone who had helped shape early British pop and rock, the omission felt personal. There were moments when the criticism became public and sharp. In 1998, radio host Chris Evans, then presenting The Breakfast Show on Virgin Radio, declared he would no longer play Cliff's records because he considered him too old. The comment stung, not just because of the words, but because it reflected a broader feeling of ageism within parts of the industry. In 2004, veteran DJ Tony Blackburn was suspended from his role at Classic Gold Digital after playing Cliff's songs against station policy. An internal message reportedly stated that Cliff did not match the station's brand values. Blackburn responded by reading the email live on air before playing 2 of Cliff's tracks in protest. The incident sparked debate about whether musical legacy should be dismissed because of image or fashion. In 2011, the digital station Absolute Radio 60s announced it would not include Cliff's music, claiming it did not fit the cool sound they wanted to promote. Cliff replied calmly but firmly, saying the station was misleading itself and the public. To him, it was not about being trendy, it was about acknowledging history. Cliff has also expressed frustration at what he sees as double standards in how artists are judged. He has spoken about how some performers receive praise even after public struggles with substances and destructive behavior, while his own clean lifestyle is sometimes mocked. In a 2009 interview, he described himself as one of Britain's most radical rock and roll singers, not because he smashed guitars or trashed hotel rooms, but because he refused to follow that path. "I've never wanted to trash a hotel room," he once said with quiet pride. Over the years, he has criticized parts of the industry for encouraging controversy as a marketing tool. In 2013, he voiced concern about the sexualized public image of younger artists such as Miley Cyrus, and he recalled being unsettled in the 1970s by the theatrical shock style of Alice Cooper. Years earlier, he had commented on the self-destructive image cultivated by bands like Oasis, suggesting that chaos should not be mistaken for authenticity. Some writers have tried to explain the resistance he faces. In The Guardian, journalist Sam Leith argued that Cliff's open Christianity, clean living image, and even his interest in his Portuguese winery have made him difficult for younger generations to relate to. Another writer, John Robb, suggested that by rejecting the usual drink and substances rebellion of rock culture, Cliff became a different kind of rebel, someone who quietly stood apart from the expected script. In December 2013, Cliff reflected on how songs like Mistletoe and Wine and The Millennium Prayer may have shaped public perception of him. Both were major hits, yet he felt they triggered a negative reaction in certain corners of the media. "Airplay is vital," he said. "The only way I can have a fair competition is if your records are on the radio." He questioned whether a new single from him today would receive equal support. Not everyone has dismissed him. Author and critic Tony Parsons once wrote that if you do not like at least some Cliff Richard, then perhaps you do not like pop music at all. And Sting publicly defended him, calling him one of Britain's finest singers, both technically and emotionally. For Cliff, the issue has never simply been about charts. It has been about recognition, about not being written out of the story he helped create. After decades in the spotlight, the silence from certain stations may be quieter than boos or criticism, but it carries its own weight. How does a legend confront age, limits, and life on stage? Let's find out. Facing time, still facing the crowd. As he approached his 85th birthday, Cliff Richard made a remark that stopped many of his fans in their tracks. In early 2025, during an interview, he spoke with unusual bluntness about his future. "I might be dead next year," he said. The words were not dramatic in tone, but they carried weight. After more than 6 decades in music and over 250 million records sold, Cliff was acknowledging something no performer can outrun: time. Speaking to Coast Radio in July, he admitted that touring, once the lifeblood of his career, has become harder. "The thing I would have to give up probably at some point is touring," he explained it. "It's very wearing and you never know when you wake up in the morning whether your voice is still there. For a singer whose voice has defined his life, that uncertainty is no small matter." When asked whether his 2025 Can't Stop Me Now tour might be his last, he refused to make promises. "I don't know," he said honestly. "I might be dead next year, so I don't even think about it anymore. It's one of those things. As I get older, maybe I'll become less able to perform, so I can't say." There was no self-pity in his answer, only realism. Cliff has always been careful about how he presents himself. He made it clear that he does not want to be an 85-year-old guy trying to be 18. He said he can still move on stage, and that is enough. With two backing singers who can dance, act, sing, and play instruments, he feels supported. "I don't want to try and be 18 anymore," he admitted. "I like singing now. I'm as excited now as I was when I came last time." He believes audiences can sense that he and his band feel like family on tour. "We'll try and do something that will make it look as though I'm 18, he added with a smile. "But I'm not." At the same time, he has been thinking about longevity. He has even been reading a book about reaching 100 years old, exploring advice that includes apples, celery juice, and other health tips. He follows a strict blood-type diet, avoiding dairy, wheat, red meat, crustaceans, mangoes, papayas, bananas, potatoes, tomatoes, and aubergines. Behind the honesty about mortality is something deeper. Cliff is not giving up. He is simply aware that every tour, every performance could be the last. And instead of pretending otherwise, he chooses to sing while he still can. What do you think about his private life being aired to the media without his consent? Let us know in the comments section below. Cliff Richard living a double life for 30 years, and no one knew until now, reveals how fame, faith, and secrecy can collide. What seemed untouchable, his private life, showed the human side of resilience and reinvention. If this story changed how you see Cliff Richard, like, subscribe, turn on notifications, and click the next video to uncover more hidden truths.